It's 98 degrees at 3 o'clock. WROV, Roanoke.
If you're like most of us, you grew up listening to voices out of thin air. We weren't crazy. We were just tuning into our favorite radio DJs. This week, in a special series of reports, Ted Stone reveals where some of those famous voices from the past are.
It's a strange job. They sit alone in a small room, playing music they don't always like, talking to people they can't see, never really knowing who's listening. And yet the ones who do the job well may remain on the air in our minds forever. This week on News 7, we'll visit with some of the disc jockeys who did the job well enough to change the sound of radio in our region. They include one of the first female DJs in Roanoke and a couple of classic oldies who are finding new fans among the children of their original listeners. We'll even hear from the DJ who first brought rock and roll to the airwaves in Roanoke more than 40 years ago.
People started calling. The mail started coming in like crazy.
Now that was before it was even called rock and roll. Gene, our Voices from the Past series will air on News 7 at 6 and 11. And tonight in our first report, we're off to see the Wizard.
All right, sounds like fun. Thanks, Ted.
If you grew up listening to the radio, ever had a favorite song, then you probably had a favorite disc jockey. The old songs are still around, sure, but what happened to those radio voices from the past? Well, Ted Stone went looking for a few of the DJs many of us remember, and he'll be showing us what he found this week. Tonight, he has an update on a Roanoke disc jockey who once made national entertainment news.
For almost 30 years, WROV AM was one of the top radio stations in the Roanoke Valley. With a signal that barely reached Bedford, the station relied on a procession of talented disc jockeys to keep listeners tuning in. All of them were part of the station's success, but it's doubtful any of them achieved as much recognition as a lanky guy from Marion with an unmistakable voice.
It's 98 degrees at 3 o'clock. WROV, Roanoke.
It was a hot little radio station, 1 kilowatt of AM, but it was a dominant station.
Bart Prater's growl radiated out on that 1 kilowatt from 1968 until 1981. But as with other DJs, the listeners never knew him as well as they thought they did.
And the microphone was my best friend. I would tell it everything. People always thought I was relatively nuts and outgoing, and I'm not. I've always been very quiet and withdrawn.
That didn't stop him from tormenting WROV's owner, the late Bert Levine, with some devilish practical jokes.
Find the fish. That was a favorite one of mine. I'd go fishing down behind the radio station every day on my lunch break and catch a brim and put it in the building somewhere. And then people would hopefully find it eventually. One lasted for 2 weeks, mounted on a plaque in the front lobby. Finally, Bert noticed it.
In 1975, Billboard magazine named Prater the nation's radio personality of the year for markets under 1 million people.
Got me a trip to California and some job offers. And that was about it. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of people.
He passed up the offers and stayed in Roanoke and did a stint at K92 in the 1980s. These days, Bart and his best friend are no longer on speaking terms, yet they're never far apart. He's now an engineer at public radio station WVTF, helping to bring you the hits by Beethoven, Mozart, and Vivaldi.
Also changed the light bulbs.
The DJ, once known as the Wizard of Rock, admits he's even developing a taste for classical music. As for his own future on the air,
I think I said everything I had to say twice.
He may have signed off for good in Roanoke, but there's an echo of the old wizard in the air up north. His son is a DJ in Detroit. Ted Stone, News 7.
And tomorrow on Voices from the Past, we'll meet a DJ who's being heard in Roanoke now, years after he made his mark in Lynchburg at the old WLLL.
I'm a dinosaur in this market, really.